so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land under the frame, in the home of the brave.
Don't be afraid, this is a low fat, and you are listening to HonestAnswerRadio.com. Now, where is the egg roll you guys promised me?
The views and opinions expressed on the Honest Answer Radio show are the opinions of Honest Answer Media and no one else. If you're hearing a syndicated broadcast of this show, don't hold it against the broadcaster. Rather, congratulate them on their openness, tolerance, and respect for the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
All the times have come here, but now they're gone. Seasons don't fear the reaper, nor do the wind, the sun, or the rain. We can be like they are. Come on, baby, don't fear the reaper. Baby, take my hand. Don't fear the reaper. We'll be able to fly. Don't fear the reaper. Baby, I'm your man. La 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 la.
And welcome to Honest Answer Radio here on HonestAnswerRadio.com, where we're bashing the mainstream media in the teeth every chance we get. If this is your first time listening to us, I'm going to be the Marty half of your dynamic hosting duo this fine Thursday evening.
And on the Thursday evening edition of Honest Answer Radio, I will be the Casey half. And man, you know, we said the other night that we did a show on Tuesday,
Yeah.
and then there was Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
and today is Thursday, and we said before we got off the air that it was likely that people would be running their mouths where they ain't got no business running their mouths, and that politicians wasn't going to act right.
Mm-hmm. And that the world would catch on fire.
But
And, you know, a certain part of the world did catch on fire.
well, actually, two places: Venezuela and
Well,
the
yeah,
Ukraine.
that's true. Now, to be fair, both of those places were having their own little blow-ups, you know, prior to our going on the air Tuesday. But
In other words, we didn't start it, y'all.
no, we didn't start the fire. It was always burning.
That's right.
The world was turning. But things have gotten pretty out of hand up over there in the Ukraine, enough so that it's starting to dominate some of our news feeds.
And the Olympics.
And the Olympics. And, man, I saw today where President Obama has warned the Ukrainians or the Ukrainian government, don't get out of hand or else. I'm drawing a line here.
A red line.
I'm drawing a red line. You better not step over it. Remember what I did to Syria and Bashar Assad when he stepped over the... Yeah, I didn't do anything. Exactly what kind of threat is it come from our beloved president?
I don't know,
when he
but
says, don't cross this line.
But what have we said over and over and over again on this show about weakness making evil people grow bold?
Yeah. Well, now look.
Weakness in good people makes the evil people grow bold.
I was watching The Five on Fox News Channel earlier, and when they were talking about the protests going on over there in the Ukraine, and the Ukrainian troops taking on some of the citizens, shooting at them, and all this. One of them had said something about, I believe it was Greg Gutfeld and Dana Perino actually were saying that, if Ronald Reagan were in charge, that the admonition, don't cross this line, would have carried more weight. And Bob Becker was saying, what could Ronald Reagan do? What would he do? What would he be doing differently in this situation? Well, we really will never know because Ronald Reagan is not our president right now. Ronald Reagan is long dead. But when Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States, and there was the evil Soviet Empire when they were still in existence, what Ronald Reagan said carried a lot of weight. There were no doubts in the minds of the Soviet premiers and so forth.
What happened when Gaddafi? What happened when Gaddafi crossed Ronald Reagan's red line? Ronald Reagan sent a missile into his house,
into his bedroom. Like you were saying, this weakness, this perceived weakness of our president is emboldening some of these ruthless dictators around the world. And we're talking about now, the Ukraine, granted, is really going to come under the thumb of Russia with Vladimir Putin.
Right.
And Vladimir Putin is not Mikhail Gorbachev. Not by any stretch of the imagination. He's a lot more ruthless than Mikhail Gorbachev.
He's a lot more Khrushchev than
Yeah.
Gorbachev.
That's very good. That's a good analogy. He is not afraid of anything that Barack Obama has to say. He's not afraid of anything that Barack Obama will do, because so far, when Obama has made a threat about something in foreign policy, involving foreign policy to another nation, he's not backed up any of it. I mean, what's he going to do? Send John Kerry over to look at him hard?
Or to nuance them. I mean,
he's gonna go over there
John
and
Kerry's got
nuance
some nuance. He's got a whole sack full of nuance that he can just bring right over there and just dump it on them.
I think Vladimir Putin is going to see this threat by Obama just like the rest of us do. It's meaningless. It
has the same weight that if you like your health care plan, you can keep it.
On the other hand, this is the Ukraine we're talking about here. And exactly what would we have our president do? I mean, the thing is it's not our problem. If this is anybody's problem, it is the EU's problem. It is something that they should deal with. If it were up to me, our president would have just kept his mouth shut and said, this is for the EU to deal with. We've got our own problems right here in this country that I've created, and I may need to clean some of that up.
And he's trying. He's trying to clean up a mess. Of course,
He
it's
is?
all yeah. You know,
Really?
because look, we've got all this income inequality that he has to address.
But you said he was trying.
Well, I didn't say that he was trying anything that would work or that we would like.
Well,
But
okay,
his-
he's
you
trying to
know,
make it worse.
Like he wants to raise the minimum wage up to $10.10 an hour.
Man, we've talked about this for a couple of weeks now, this whole minimum wage hike thing. And the CBO has weighed in on this.
That's the congressional. For those of you that might have been in a coma.
The CBO weighed in on Obamacare a couple of weeks ago and said that, this is going to cost us 2.5 million jobs. And the president said you can't trust the CBO. I mean, they don't know what they're talking about, even though when the CBO spouted some numbers that were actually favorable to the Obama camp, back then, well, look, the CBO said it. It must be true. And now the CBO...
Because they're nonpartisan.
Yeah, because they're completely nonpartisan.
But now, all of a sudden, they're partisan.
Apparently, because the CBO, in addressing the minimum wage hike, has said that it could potentially cost 500,000 jobs. Now, when the president was trying to talk up the idea of hiking the minimum wage, he said just the opposite. He said this will create more jobs and create, better economic stability. But we have said repeatedly that whenever you're going to raise the minimum wage, it's going to also raise the cost of production, which is going to raise the cost of goods and services.
And what I want to know, why stop at $10.10 an hour?
Why not just go on up to $50 an hour, maybe?
Or, at least $25, $30 an hour, something like union scale wages at an automobile plant or something like that, I mean, well, shoot, Mr. President.
Yeah, if you're
why
going to
stop
go all
it?
out.
Are you trying to starve people, Barack Obama?
Well, he's trying to lessen that income inequality gap case. I mean, well, I'll tell you what, Charles Krauthammer probably had a better take on this,
a more articulate one.
A more articulate take on this than us. Let's hear what he had to say about it.
Look, this is what the administration does when the CBO, whom it's been touting for 2, 3, 4 years as the nonpartisan, the arbiter of disputes, whenever it brings something that is obvious but doesn't help them politically, they say it's not true. Look, a child can tell you that if you raise the minimum wage by 1/3, you're going to get fewer jobs. There are reams, there are years of economic studies that show that, and it's obvious. All that the CBO did was to give it a number, roughly 500,000. So what you get is a trade-off. Some of the people at the minimum wage are going to get more income, and that's good. And there are going to be about 500,000 who are going to go from $7 an hour to zero. They're going to be destitute. And worse, because more than half the minimum wage earners are people under 25, this is their one chance at opportunity, the first job, to get experience, to get the habit, to get into the workforce, and they're going to lose that leg up on the ladder, the one that Obama always talks about as the ideal that he's trying to construct. So it totally contradicts what Obama pretends his economic policy is, which is to give people the tools and the opportunity to climb into the middle class. That's why the White House had to dismiss the numbers, even though they are obvious to everybody who can see them.
This is just another method of income redistribution, or I don't know, income redistribution,
wealth
redistribution. You're going to take the minimum wage, raise it up. Some people are going to be making more money, but these 500,000 people that are going to lose their jobs as a result of the minimum wage hike are going to be losing their money. You're going to be taken from the haves and you're going to give to the have-nots.
The math,
The haves are going to become the have-nots because they're going to have not a job.
the math of wealth redistribution has never in the history of the world worked. Never, not
Never.
once. Why don't you look at Argentina? Take a look at Argentina. They nationalized industries left and right, tried to guarantee wages to workers. That whole nationalization thing, you know what that is? That means they're socializing whole industries and saying, okay, you private companies, you don't own this anymore. Now the people own it.
Or look at Venezuela.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was my
right
next
now-
example.
Right now, Venezuela, the people have had about all of the wealth redistribution that they can stomach.
Because they don't have the jobs.
They don't have anything. Man, Venezuela is doing good to keep toilet paper right now.
And see, why is it that when socialism really starts to go south, that the first thing they run out of is toilet paper? Because remember, that was one of the things that people used to have to stand in line for in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
You know, was standing in line for toilet paper, and the store wouldn't have any.
Yeah, why-
those people
why is
didn't
that?
have socks because they had to use their socks instead of toilet paper.
Why is that? Why is it that toilet paper is the first thing to go? That is bizarre.
Well, it's not the first thing to go, but that's when the people have absolutely had enough.
That's usually when the revolution starts.
Because,
Look,
you know-
I ain't got no toilet paper. That's it. I was okay when I lost my job. I was okay when I had to cut down to one meal a day. But now you're taking my toilet paper. That's it. That's it. People hit the streets.
That seems to be the last straw. That's when the rioting starts, is when they start having toilet paper shortages. Now, we're making fun of it, but, you know, it's deadly serious, folks. People are dying in Venezuela, and they're dying by violence.
Well, what scares me is all of these steps towards nationalization and the government becoming more and more involved in our lives. We are getting closer and closer every day to becoming one of those nations.
Oh, man, no, you're just being a conspiracy theorist now, Marty.
I prefer to think of it as a student of history.
Well, we were conspiracy theorists back in 2009 when we were telling people that this Obamacare
The
business
socialization of medicine, maybe?
was going to cost jobs and cause employers not to hire people.
And now, now for some reason, people losing their jobs it's a good thing. It's going to give them more time with their families.
Gets them away from job lock.
Yeah, job lock. They're
Yeah.
not going to be burdened with having to go into a job for 8 hours a day
Well,
to
see,
feed their family.
What the people in the Obama administration say is becoming so irrelevant, not only here at home, but as you can see by Vladimir Putin's boldness in the Ukraine, it's becoming irrelevant around the world.
Yeah.
Because when you demonstrate that you do not do what you say you're going to do, nobody trusts you. Nobody believes you.
And you become irrelevant.
And you become irrelevant. Because on the one hand, they talk about how something like Obamacare is going to create jobs. Well, when that doesn't pan out, then they start trying to tell you that not having the jobs is a good thing. And then they turn right around and tell you that, well, no, it's still going to create jobs, like Kathleen Sebelius was doing the other day when we played that audio on the show. What are you supposed to believe? We tell people all the time, don't believe me and Marty.
Please don't.
Don't believe me. Do not take my word
Do your
for
own
any
research.
of this. It really takes just a little bit of common sense, and you don't even have to have a calculator, man. Most of this stuff is linear mathematics that can be done with a pencil and a piece of paper.
You don't even have to bother with actually doing the math case. It's really just study history. How many times has this worked for a country?
But the thing is if you're going to study history, well, you want to go back to a book that was probably written before, say, 1995 or 1996, because that was before Common Core started getting into the curriculum.
Yeah, because that's going to mess
so,
up.
So if you really want to find out about, real history, you're going to have to go back a ways to
We're
read
not talking about
the
revisionist
textbook.
history,
right.
like actual history.
Yeah, so...
all this, what this amounts to, though, man, is it is just more government involvement in our daily lives.
And history, again, has shown that never, not once in the history of the entire world has the government helped people when it got involved in their lives. Not once.
It's interesting that we should, say that, because in order for you to be able to be a student of history or to study, that means you're, doing your own research.
Right.
See, that is starting to make the government antsy. The fact that people are starting to do their own research and find more ways to get their information is starting to get the government just a little bit nervous, because they're starting to know too much. Like another article that came out today, the government has now went to the FCC. The White House went to the FCC. I think it was last year, or maybe it was 2012. And they went to the FCC and said, we really need to do a study and see how news outlets, broadcast outlets are deciding what stories they run. We need to see and make sure that the stories that the government, that the press is putting out there are really in the interest of the public. That they're really of public interest.
In other words, let me translate, because Marty was actually speaking White House-ese. The English translation of all that is there's negative stories coming out about the White House.
And do the people really need to hear these? Now, they've cloaked this in saying they're doing a study on bias to see if there's any bias in these broadcast outlets.
You know what it is? Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Dana Loesch, Laura Ingraham. Well, Glenn Beck's, he's on the airwaves still.
He's still
his
on the
show is
radio,
still syndicated. Man. Conservative talk radio has finally done it to the Obama administration. They have had enough of people actually getting the truth and conservative people actually putting their opinions out on public airwaves where just anybody.
Well, it's not the first time that the government has tried to, step into the press.
They
in the interest of fairness.
They successfully imposed the quote unquote fairness doctrine years ago.
Until they got their britches sewed off enough and finally had to step back and go, okay. But it took till 1986 for them to ease off of the fairness doctrine.
But see, another report has come out, one of those places that ranks things, has ranked the United States.
Wait now. Now, we'll let somebody else talk about this study now. Because
Okay.
I happen to have audio
You
to
got
back
some
that.
audio?
I don't want you to just spout out a number right there and somebody call bull on us.
Okay, I got you.
We'll let somebody more reputable. Glenn Beck was talking about this story today about the government stepping in, and he was livid, as he should be, and as everyone should be. But listen to this.
And so the FCC is putting monitors in local radio stations, in local television stations, to monitor how stories are selected. But not just monitor to learn, no. Monitor to make sure that those stories are all in the public interest. You cannot allow the federal government into your local newsrooms. You cannot allow them to take over the local news. This is not happening in cable yet, but net neutrality is back. And so net neutrality is the way they're going to get through into the internet and onto cable. Do you see what's happening? They are taking over education. They are taking over media. Well, that's not what we set up. That's not what the founders set up. That's not our system. What is the rank of the United States of America with freedom of press? Think in your mind right now, what number are we? In all of the world, where do we rank currently, today, before the FCC has monitors in all of our newsrooms? And I want you to know, that's not a conspiracy theory. That is fact. They are putting monitors, FCC monitors, in our local newsrooms. Warning, America. Warning. So, what is the rank that you think in your head right now? Say a number. What are there, 160 nations, 160 or 180 nations? Where do you think we rank on freedom of press in the world?
Well, because of the First Amendment, we got to be first or second, right?
I would think top five. I would say top five, because if I wouldn't be coming to you if it was number one, and I would think top five, maybe
top 10,
maybe top 10. We have fallen down to the top 10. Stu, where would you think we are?
Honestly, I would think. I mean, my first guess would be one. This is where we should be. But assuming you're bringing this up for a reason, I mean, you know, maybe some countries have moved ahead of us. Maybe we're 15, 12.
Okay, so, all right, 12 or 15. Jeffy?
We've got to be in the top 10, right? If we're not
10.
number one.
Okay, got top 10. I would say top 5 or top 10. Where are we?
46th.
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 In freedom of press. 46th. America, you better wake up now. You better wake up. Our neighbors have better wake up. They better wake up. Now, here's the good news.
There ain't no good news.
No, there's no good news. You know why? Because the FCC has the funding to be able to stick monitors in local radio stations and local newsrooms around the country.
Like you said, this isn't happening to the cable outlets yet. It's not happening on the internet yet. But with the net neutrality, remember we were very outspoken when this whole net neutrality thing was coming around.
Right.
And we warned people that this was just another way for the government to get their thumb on what can be broadcast or put out for public consumption on the internet. What is it going to take? What is finally going to be that proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back?
Y'all don't wait till you run out of toilet paper before you get mad. Call your Congress people now. Because the House of Representatives, Marty, and I talked about it on the last show. Trey Gowdy keeps talking about it. The House of Representatives has the power of the purse.
Right.
If the FCC doesn't have funds, now see, the legislative branch apparently is powerless to stop an executive branch alphabet agency from creating rules that have the effect of law. Apparently, they can't stop that. But what they can do is say, if you're going to try that, you're going to have to do it with no frickin' money.
Mm-hmm.
So, where are you, Congress? Where are you?
Well, you remember Congress they were all behind this net neutrality thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Where are you? You're right. You're not in the interest of the American people, because I haven't heard any Congress. I watch the news all day today, dude. I was reading on the internet all day, mainstream outlets. I'm seeing internet outlets saying, "Hey, this ain't good, folks. This ain't good." Where are the interviews with the people in the House of Representatives saying, "Y'all don't worry about this. We'll cut off their funding"? Where? Have you heard anything?
Are we going to have another fairness doctrine? Are they going to bring that back in our Congress or the House of Representatives or the Senate? They're just going to sit back and let this stuff happen again? I mean, really, folks, do you really want your information controlled by your government?
Because, okay, if you're a progressive out there and you're thinking this is a good thing, they're going to get old Rush Limbaugh off the air and everything. Well, what's going to happen when a Republican gets in office?
That's a good question.
Do you want a Republican deciding what you hear? For those of you out there who are real conservatives, do you want John Boehner deciding what you get to read and what you get to hear? I mean, seriously, folks, do you want to hear all day about Miley Cyrus and Beyonce? Is that what you want? Because I promise you, they will say that, oh, that's in the interest of the American people to know everything that's going on in celebrity lives, but the congressional voting record, not so much.
You guys don't really need... See, this is their way
of saying... You don't really
saying,
need C-SPAN because you don't really need to be able to just see and hear with your own ears what we say and do in Congress and in the White House press briefings.
In the eyes of the government, you and I are not intelligent enough to be able to read news on our own or get information on our own and really be able to disseminate the truth from the trash. We're not smart enough to do that, Casey. We need the government to be able to step in and say, this is what's in the public's best interest. You know, knowing what the ins and outs of congressional voting, the public really has no need for that information.
And they don't really need to know all the that 1,513 new federal regulations came out in 1 month.
No, it would just confuse the public. I mean, look at what's happened since the internet has exploded. I mean, people are being able to read anything, everything. They've got just so much information out there. It's information overload.
It's confusing.
The general public is not capable of deciding these things for themselves.
You need college professors, consultants, lawyers, and
Right.
politicians to figure all this
You
stuff
need the
out for you.
intellectuals to tell you what the truth really is.
And that is not pee that's running down your neck. It's raining.
No, it's just raining. It's just raining. Another thing that came up today, you know, if we can switch gears for a minute.
Sure.
Another I told you so moment. Remember not too long ago, we were talking about potential presidential candidates coming up 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about how very little attention was being paid to what was going on in Wisconsin.
Right.
You know, the mainstream press was totally unwilling to show how successful Scott Walker had been as governor
Right.
in Wisconsin. You know, they talked about it endlessly when he was being brought up for a recall election, but once he survived both recalls and some of his plans and ideas actually began to be implemented, and people started going back to work, and Wisconsin started getting out of the red and into the black. They didn't want to talk about that.
No, they didn't want to talk about that.
But remember, we said that since he has been so successful, and there's a hint that he may run for 2016, rest assured, the mainstream press was not going to let that go.
Right.
I was looking at, I think it was Real Clear Politics today, and I saw this blurb there about Chris Hayes from over there at MSNBC,
Mm-hmm.
that he was taking on Scott Walker. So I went and I clicked play just to see what in the heck they were talking about. And man, just what we said was going to happen. Once there's that little hint of blood in the water, The mainstream press was going to go after Scott Walker with a vengeance. They were going to make sure that by the time 2016 came around, he would be unfit to run for the office of the president.
So Chris Hayes fires the opening salvo?
Oh, yeah. And he's not going to be alone. But listen to this clip.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Well, it's a bad day for Wisconsin Republican Governor Scott Walker. All over the country right now, investigative reporters are poring over 28,000 newly released documents related to a criminal investigation of a former Walker aide. These documents have the potential to do real damage to the Wisconsin governor, who's up for re-election this year. We've got a reporter joining us in just a moment to talk about what we know so far. Now, Scott Walker's bad day comes on the heels of what had been a string of very good days for a man who's widely believed to be eyeing a run for the GOP presidential nomination in 2016. Because Scott Walker is the one person with the most to gain from the scandals engulfing Chris Christie, who until recently was a frontrunner for the GOP nomination. You see, like Chris Christie, Walker is beloved by big money donors who applaud his willingness to go after unions. And like Chris Christie, he has run successfully in a blue state, even surviving a recall election. In fact, if you're one of those 1%ers who wants to use your fortune to influence politics, and you're looking for a general election-friendly alternative to Tea Party-aligned candidates like Rand Paul or Ted Cruz, the sudden fall of Chris Christie has left you taking a long, hard look at Scott Walker. Okay, here's the problem. It turns out that Scott Walker has more or less the exact same baggage that none other than Chris Christie has. In fact, when it comes to misdeeds and abuses of power from people in your inner circle, the Wisconsin governor may already have Christie beat. Before he became governor, Scott Walker was the county executive in Milwaukee County. His office was investigated in a so-called John Doe probe, which allows prosecutors to compel people to produce documents and give testimony. The good news for Walker is that the investigation was closed out without his being charged or accused of wrongdoing. The bad news is that it led to convictions of 6 of his former aides and allies. That includes Walker's former deputy chief of staff, Kelly Rindfleisch, who pled guilty to misconduct in office for performing political work for a candidate backed by Walker while she was supposed to be doing legislative work.
Okay. Scott Walker was a county exec, right?
Right.
He was part of this John Doe probe.
Right.
6 of his staffers got caught up in it, saying that they were doing political campaigning while they were on the public clock, if you will.
Right.
And his chief of staff got caught up in it.
Deputy chief of
staff, right. That is their big scandal. Now, apparently there's also another probe, which, by the way, Scott Walker came right on through the other side of this so-called scandal that they're digging up here, and he wasn't implicated at all. But there's still another one out there that they're going to make sure they get him this time.
Hey, man, how many Americans at embassies died on Scott Walker's watch?
Gee, none. And here's another thing, though, that I find very interesting. Here it is, 2014. And good old Chris Hayes and the fine folks at MSNBC, they're making sure that this Scott Walker character is going to be fully vetted. They're going to dig into every single thing, because we've got 20,000 documents that, you rest assured, the press are pouring over.
Well, now look.
Where was this investigative techniques when Barack Obama was running for president?
Well, wasn't it MSNBC that broke stories about all of Obama's idols and mentors being communist? No, wait.
No, it wasn't them.
them.
Yeah, all these associations that he had with people like Bill Ayers.
No, I don't think that was MSNBC that talked about that.
Or his pastor, who said things like, "God damn America."
Let's see.
Or how about those pictures of Michelle Obama at the flag burnings? Or her association and Barack's association with known Black Panthers.
No, man, MSNBC didn't have anything
Where
to do
was
with
all
that.
of this investigative journalism then? And they're still to this day, completely unwilling to dig into anything regarding Obama.
You know, if I didn't know better, I would think you were accusing MSNBC of having a left-wing bias.
You think the FCC will find that? You think they could find bias at MSNBC?
I'm sure they're going to monitor them very closely.
Oh yeah. Or their parent company, which would fall under this FCC probe, NBC. You sure that you think maybe they might find bias there? Oh no. Of course not, Casey. Because there's nothing there to see. There's no there.
Well, but
20,000 documents pertaining to Scott Walker. And you rest assured that they are going to look at every single line on every single page to find anything they can that would keep Scott Walker out of the 2016 elections.
Because he's scary.
Oh, yeah. That man that put Wisconsin back on the right path, he should have never took on those unions. They'll show him who's boss.
So, now I'm understanding from our conversation before the show but that wasn't the only clip you had from
MSNBC. Oh, no. It's been a while since we had anything.
And it's
from
not
our
even
hero.
the only Chrissy Poo.
Yeah, it's the only Chrissy Poo clip I got. I only had the one Chrissy Poo.
Well, I mean, there's two Chris's there.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. We had
got
Chrissy Poo Hayes, and I've got Chrissy Poo McTingle.
Exactly.
Remember the other night, I played that clip of Ted Nugent and Roseanne Barr.
I remember it very well.
I think Chris Matthews saw that clip too, and he's not having it.
He must have been listening to our show.
You think he might have been? That mean old Ted Nugent, there's only one reason for him to be saying those negative things about President Obama, Casey. There's only one reason.
There can only be one reason.
Let me finish tonight with this. The haters are out there tonight. Down in Texas, this fellow calls the President of the United States, elected twice by majorities, a Chicago communist-raised, communist-educated, communist-nurtured, subhuman mongrel, an acorn community organizer gangster. Well, it's the same insolence you heard when that other guy yelled at you when the president was addressing a joint session of Congress. The same you get from all those birthers like Louis Gohmert of Texas, those still out there denying the president's legitimacy, like Rafael Cruz, who says we must send the president, quote, back to Kenya, like the Texas congressman I had on who just couldn't bring himself to say Barack Obama was legitimately elected president of the United States. Like weeds, they come back every year. These politicians who think the easy way to grab the hard right voter is to feed them the notion that the president of the United States is a secret communist infiltrator from East Africa. Well, with spring coming, it might be a good idea for the voters of Texas and elsewhere to begin doing what you do with weeds, pull them, and throw them where they belong, in the compost pile.
Oh, that mean old Ted Nugent. There's only one logical reason that he would have anything negative to say about the president. He's a racist, Casey.
Let's see, he was born to a communist woman.
Mm-hmm. He was mentored by a card-carrying communist, Frank Marshall Davis.
Yes.
One of his other mentors there in Chicago, an avowed communist, an avowed domestic terrorist, Bill Ayers.
So...
But the only reason to bring any of that up would be racism.
I see. So, yeah. But, Chris Matthews is yet another one of those very reliable, completely unbiased souls over there at MSNBC.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you can take every, an accusation by Chris Matthews of racism. Oh, it sticks. It sticks so hard.
Oh, yeah.
Because, see, Nugent, I don't know if you caught it, but he said Chicago.
No.
And Chris Matthews has already proven that that's a racist dog whistle, the word Chicago.
Yeah, because there's absolutely no white people in Chicago.
You know, when Frank Sinatra would sing, Chicago, Chicago, hey,
Bigot.
you're my kind of town.
Yeah, bigot.
Yeah.
Bigot.
Yeah.
All the way, because that's the only reason to bring Chicago up at all, is if you're a racist. Even though there was a video out a few weeks ago from Obama's district there in Chicago, in that community that he was so helpful to with his organizing skills, where they were saying he didn't do anything for any of us except make things worse. And they happened to be the same color as the president, but I guess they were racist.
They were racist. They were racist. They had to be all of them.
Yeah.
Because they said Chicago, too.
You know, I heard something out of Ann Coulter this week, and I really couldn't believe that she said it on the air, but I'll echo it, co-sign it, and give it an amen. And this is probably going to make me a bigot, too. But if Barack Obama was not our nation's first black president, he would have never been allowed to do the things that he's done to this country. He would have already not only been impeached, but more than likely imprisoned if he were not our first black president. But you know what? I don't know. If Allen West was our president, and he was our first black president, and he did the same things that President Obama is doing and has done.
He would have been in jail by now.
He would have been in jail. There is no doubt about it. So I'm not so sure that Ann is necessarily 100% right when she's saying, it's because he's our black president.
Well,
they're so afraid of appearing racist.
When Ann is right, she's dead on the money. However, when she's wrong, she goes very, very wrong. Chris Christie was her darling for a long time.
That's true. But there is a little bit of truth to what she's saying.
There's a little bit of truth there.
The fact that he is our nation's first black president, it is making a lot of people very, very scared to say anything about him, because they don't want to appear to be racist. But I would say that it's not so much that he's our first black president, but he's our first Democrat black president. Because if Allen West or Thomas Sowell had done some of the things that Obama has done, I don't think they would have survived it, no matter what color they were. I'm trying to figure out what it is that is so special about Barack Obama that has made the press so afraid to call him out for the things that he's done.
He was the only black Democrat in the race.
I don't know. I don't know, man. It is mind-boggling.
But, you mentioned Thomas Sowell, and it wasn't really on our agenda tonight, but I can't get off the air without at least mentioning the piece that he wrote. And see, you mentioned Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter is one of those who's out there screaming for party unity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Thomas Sowell wrote a piece about Ted Cruz over the weekend that, he's basically slamming Cruz for dividing the party.
Yeah.
And, ordinarily I'm in agreement with Thomas Sowell on just about everything.
Guy.
He is brilliant. I'm not saying that he's not. But in this case, he's wrong. He's flat out wrong. In the name of party unity, we are here where we are right now. Party unity in the GOP put us right here.
But I do say, I think he's wrong about Ted Cruz. And I'm not one for party unity either. But at the same time, man, the only other alternative would be to, I mean, if you're not going to vote for one of these Republicans because they're anti-Ted Cruz or they're anti-Tea Party, what are you going to vote for a Democrat?
No. See, that's it. The country is offered the false choice. Either get behind, as far as party unity goes, unify the party under the establishment GOP rules, or else we're doomed. That's a false choice. You know, if some party unity could be established around the things that Ted Cruz says, the GOP would actually be in fine shape.
Well, that's true too.
Because it's already been proven now that they're starting to hurt for money, because the grassroots people are saying, you know what, I'm not giving my money to Reince Priebus and the RNC. I'm going to give it to either individual candidates or a Tea Party organization like Freedom Works, or I'm going to give my money to, say, the Senate Conservatives Fund.
Right, right.
See, if there could be some unity established around Freedom Works, if Reince Priebus could get behind the grassroots of the base that puts that sends money, you know, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
You're absolutely right.
See, they're wanting to establish party unity around all of the wrong principles and all of the wrong people. They want party unity established around those inside the beltway consultants.
Yeah.
And the inside the beltway lawyers.
They call them experienced candidates. But
the experience that they have is what got us here.
Well,
those same people put us right here where we are now, with an executive that's out of control
and out of touch,
you know, and a Congress floundering around, unable to get anything done that's actually good for the country.
Or undone.
So, you know.
I do have something else, one more piece of audio coming out of Texas while we're in Texas.
Yeah,
I mean,
see, that was actually my way of segueing there into Texas.
Really? That was a segue?
That was a segue.
Okay.
A little rough, but hey.
All right. Project Veritas, James O'Keefe. Man, we love James O'Keefe. Texas is not just a battleground state. Coming up in 2016, I think Texas is going to be considered the battleground state, because there is a huge effort right now to turn Texas from red to blue.
And the main strategy is to get a blue governor.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Of Texas,
and
Wendy Davis.
I was going to say, not just any old blue governor.
But Miss Pink tennis shoe catheter wearing woman herself.
Pink tennis shoe catheter wearing,
abortion.
We need more abortions.
Right.
Wendy Davis. And they are using not just Acorn techniques, but former Acorn people to get this done.
An organization called Battleground Texas.
Ooh, that even sounds fierce, don't it? Battleground Texas.
And they are pretty fierce, because when it comes to
having, when it comes to fighting dirty and playing dirty pool and doing things entirely the wrong way, they're fierce.
And just maybe even against the state of Texas election laws, maybe?
Yeah, another word for that would be illegal. But I clipped a piece of the video that the video came out. It was on Breitbart, and
it was also on our page,
on Honest Answer Radio.
But by the way, folks, you know, y'all could get this stuff hot off the presses by subscribing to Project Veritas's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Because, as I put out in my blog yesterday, see, what Marty's going to play you is edited.
Yeah, it's just a itty-bitty piece.
But one reason why I really, really like Project Veritas and why I frequently put their videos out on it, because, see, the Project Veritas videos are not going to come back and bite us on the butt. You know why?
Because a lot of them, he actually puts out the unedited
The
versions
unedited,
as well.
yes. He gives you the edited piece so that you can, edit it for time, so you don't have to listen to an hour and 45 minutes of back and forth
Or hear the
conversation. Yeah.
Music in the background.
But they release the raw, unedited footage when, alongside
So
their
that you can
edited
get it
piece.
in context.
Exactly. So you can watch the whole video unedited and decide for yourself.
But listen to this little piece here. This is only about a minute and 20 seconds of the video, but it's an important piece.
According to the Secretary of State, it's unlawful to transcribe, copy, or otherwise record a telephone number off voter registration cards, which is something Jennifer Longoria reveals Battleground Texas is doing multiple times. Longoria reveals a series of databases called VAN, where Battleground maintains registered voters. The first database, My Voters, is a list of all the registered voters Battleground Texas received from the Secretary of State.
So My Voters is a list of every single registered voter in Texas that we have purchased from the Secretary of State and then downloaded into our database. So this is everybody, every single person that's registered.
The second tab of the database is the voters that Battleground has personally registered. Longoria reveals they have taken these numbers off of the forms.
Every time we register somebody to vote, we keep their name, number, and name, address, phone number, just so that we can get back to them, and that's where all that information.
And that's from the voter registration form?
Right, from there. Once we get out to vote 3 weeks before, we can give those people a call.
Battleground Texas then gives scripts to volunteers to call the numbers off the voter registration forms to help elect Wendy Davis weeks before the election.
Hi, Wallace.
And that all sounds like a great, great strategy, except you're not supposed to do that.
No, see, I think Alabama actually has a very similar law in place. When you sign up to be a registrar and register people to vote, that's all you're supposed to do.
All of that
register
info is
them to
supposed to
vote,
remain private.
and then turn over all of that information to the state election office.
That's right.
You don't get to keep the folks' personal information so that you can contact them later and tell them to go out and vote for your guy or gal.
And this Longoria lady, she is so proud of the fact that they're doing that. I mean, the girl that she was talking to made sure to ask, you're getting this off of the voter registration cards. Yep, that's right. That's a big no-no. It even says so on the where you're registering on the little the card. It even says that all of that information
is private.
But this Battleground Texas group, they're taking it for themselves, and they're so proud of that, so that they can take that information, your name, your address, and your phone number, and call you later and say, hey, look, I registered you to vote. Make sure that you get out and vote. And while you're voting,
vote for Wendy Davis.
Vote for Wendy Davis. That is a big, big no-no. And that's not me and Casey saying it's a big, big no-no. Breitbart got with the Secretary of State for Texas and said, what do you think about this? And they said, well, the law speaks for itself, and the video speaks for itself. And now an investigation has been launched against Battleground Texas.
Let me ask you this. If Wendy Davis is such a great candidate for governor and has such great chances in the state of Texas, why somebody got to go break the law to try to get her elected?
That's a good question. And, you know, the same thing could have been asked of President Obama when Acorn was doing this very thing. That law in Texas, you know what I found out?
What's that?
That law in Texas came about as a direct result of Acorn and their policies and tactics. Our law in Alabama came about as a result of Acorn and their tactics in elections.
So when you're using the same people from Acorn in your 501c3 or 501c4, which, speaking of which, Battleground Texas is a nonprofit.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they had any trouble making it through
past
the IRS with their little application for nonprofit status.
No, and I guarantee you the IRS has probably never contacted them about any of their political activities either.
Funny how that works,
isn't it? Though, of course, if they were a conservative
the
group,
thing is I brought this out in the blog yesterday when I published it. If you or I catch a Tea Party group employing these same tactics, I'm just going to promise everybody right here on the air, I promise you, if I catch a Tea Party organization doing something illegal,
I'm telling.
We're going to tell.
Oh, you better. I'm going to tell. I'm going to tell our listeners,
because
and I'm going to tell our Secretary of State.
Because our name is not going to be associated with that kind of underhanded election politics.
No.
James O'Keefe, there's a reason why James O'Keefe isn't uncovering conservative nonprofits doing this stuff. It's because their applications are still sitting in front of the IRS right now, and they're still being targeted. They're still being audited. They are not nonprofit organizations right now because they can't get through the process because they've been illegally targeted.
And it's funny too, because Battleground Texas, in their meetings and everything, they've got memos sent out to be on the lookout for James O'Keefe himself or James O'Keefe acolytes, or O'Keefers, as they call them, so that they don't get caught saying anything that he could use against them. So if there's if there's so above board and they're so honest in their dealings, why would they be worried about somebody like James O'Keefe and his video camera? If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, they should have no problem being videotaped as they're doing it.
See, if I was out there registering people to vote, I would welcome O'Keefers
absolutely
into my organization so that they could reassure everybody. I'd put the videotapes out there and say, please come and videotape me and my folks.
Yup.
So that everybody will know we're doing the right thing, that we're doing our stuff in an honest fashion. If you're scared of the daylight, why? Why are you scared of the daylight?
That's a good question.
Because they're doing something dirty.
And if your product is so good, why do you have to resort to dirty tactics to get it out there?
That's right.
Well, guys, we are at the end of our rainbow yet again. It is that time. Don't forget, look down there if you're on the HonestAnswerRadio.com website listening to us, look down below the player there. You'll see a little yellow donate button. If you like the Honest Answer and you want to keep it coming to you, just know that it does cost us money to do this, and that cost has gone up, and we'd really like to keep bringing you the Honest Answer. So if you feel so led, by all means, click on that little yellow button. Or you can go over to our sponsors page.
Didn't you say we got a new sponsor?
Exactly. We have a new sponsor on our sponsors page. We also have it on our on the player page there, just below the player, myfreedomsmokes.com. Welcome to Honest Answer Radio, My Freedom Smokes. Casey and I are real big on the electronic cigarette movement. If you are a smoker, a traditional smoker, and them things are starting to kick your butts, or you're just plain tired of smoking them, or you're looking for or you still like nicotine and you'd like a cleaner method of delivery, man, electronic cigarettes are awesome. They are awesome. When you're a smoker, just a plain old smoker, you got menthol, non-menthol. Now, there's a whole bunch of different brands of each kind, but that's all you get, man. You can have menthol or non-menthol, or you could buy some of those really disgusting clove cigarettes.
Yeah, but then everybody's going to, know stuff about you.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
They're,
like you've been to Burning Man or something. But see, with electronic cigarettes, man, there's any number of flavors floating around out there.
And what My Freedom Smokes is all about is about doing it yourself and
Choice.
Yes, it's all about giving you choices and options in your electronic cigarette. Because Marty and I and Tina, we use our electronic cigarettes all day long, every day. The supplies and stuff, they started the cost of all the stuff started mounting up until we found myfreedomsmokes.com and found ways of making our own flavors.
You can do this stuff yourself. But now they've also got their own flavors out there. I mean, just about any kind of flavor you can think of. They've got so many different types of batteries that it would be impossible to name them all. And the thing is they have got really, really competitive prices. I mean, look,
See, we're not
batteries,
going to bring you a sponsor that's going to try and kill your pocketbook. None of our sponsors are like that.
Right.
So when we went with My Freedom Smokes, the word freedom, it means something to Marty and Tina and I, okay? And myfreedomsmokes.com can pretty much meet every electronic cigarette need that you've got. If you want to buy the stuff off the shelf already pre-made, they got you covered. If you want to buy the individual parts once you get into it and start doing your own and rebuilding parts of your battery and all that kind of stuff,
they got you.
My Freedom Smokes will give you the freedom to do that.
Man.
And do it at a cost that you can actually live with. And like all of our other sponsors, they like for people to visit honestanswerradio.com sponsors page and get to their website by clicking that ad.
An additional 10% off. And man, they've got some free shipping deals on there. Look, I'm telling you, do yourself a favor. You can spend all day at their website. There is so much there for you to see. You could spend all day.
Well, our listeners are probably getting used to the fact now that when we bring a new sponsor on board, it's going to be quality.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're selective. We wish we made more money than we do, but I would rather have sponsors on our page that will make people happy when they visit them. That's why we have baconfreak.com. That's why we have v26.com.
Yep.
That's why we have myfoodstorage.com and LifeLock and Jelly Belly.
All quality. Cabela's. Man,
Cabela's. Cabela's. We're talking about quality stuff at quality prices.
Yup. And you get a deal at all of these places by going there from our sponsors page.
And like Marty says, he says it every week. Don't cheat yourself. Treat yourself.
Well,
when we've got a sponsor that's going to cover that need, you should visit those sponsors because they're quality people with quality products and better prices than you're going to find from anybody else.
Speaking of quality, over on our website's channel page, we also have quality programming besides Honest Answer Radio. We have a Sports World Radio, fastest hour in sports on the internet, man. Baseball season is about to be upon us.
And let me tell you something. They got the American League covered. That's Jeff and Sean over there. They've got American League covered. They got National League covered. They're both baseball freaks. I mean, freaks, folks.
If you're into the fantasy sports,
Oh, they've got their fantasy leagues going.
And they know how to analyze these fantasy players and can help you build your own fantasy team.
And they will cover everything that is sports. They will cover in 1 hour. You just won't believe it. You just got to go to the show and experience it to really truly understand.
Speaking of a good experience, we have another show on there called Challenge from the Heart with Pastor Rick Hope. I say this all the time. We're in trying times right now. And Pastor Rick Hope from First Baptist Church, Lillian, Texas, he can introduce you to Jesus Christ and help you better navigate these trying times. If you already know Jesus, look, there's always room to learn more. And all of our hearts could use a little bit of challenging right now. So do yourself a favor and give Pastor Rick a listen, man. You will not regret it.
Not at all, because there's another thing about when Pastor Rick gets up and talks to you, you're only going to hear the real thing from him. He doesn't pretty his messages up.
No.
They're not tailored to fit an audience. The title of the show is Challenge from the Heart. So what you hear from Rick, you're hearing straight from his heart the way God laid it on him to say it.
And he's also, I'm going to be embedding the player there on the Challenge from the Heart page. He's got this new thing that he's got going that he does on, what is that video, Ustream. That he does on Ustream called Ask Pastor Rick, where you can look, if you don't want your name out there, you don't want anybody to know who you really are asking these questions, you can create a fake name on there. If you've got a question, Pastor Rick will answer it. And he does this once a month, and Tina and I watched his inaugural Ask Pastor Rick, and let me tell you, there is not a question that Rick Hope won't answer for you. If he doesn't know the answer, he will tell you, look, I don't know, but I will get the answer for you about anything. There were people in there that thought they were going to throw him some kind of embarrassing question or something that was going to make the Southern Baptist in him blush and freak out and go, oh, we're not going to talk about that. Let me tell you something. Rick Hope will give you a biblical answer for any question you can throw at him. It was very informative, a lot of fun to watch, and the hour went by so fast, it seemed like I blinked. So I look forward to putting that player up there on the page. All right, dude, it's Thursday. We won't be back again until Tuesday.
Hey, wait. You forgot to mention, there's more than one way of getting to HonestAnswerRadio.com.
Right.
Go to GoingBeyondRadio.com. Not only will you be able to get the honest answer there, but you'll be able to get all the other fine programming that they have over at GoingBeyondRadio.com. And you can get it. If you've got a mobile phone, then you can pick it up on iTunes. You can get it on Shoutcast. You can get it on Live 365. You can get it on Blueberry. You can get it on your Roku.
Man, Going Beyond Radio has got programming to fit any radio need that you can possibly have. So one more time, that's goingbeyondradio.com. Go by there and give them a listen, and hey, tell them Marty and Casey sent you. All right, dude, I guess that's about it for us. We will be back again on Tuesday. You guys just please hold it together for the weekend, please.
Be nice to each other. Go out and be exceptional Americans this weekend.
Wow. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Later on.
Good night, y'all.